And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Jamin Olivencia, former WWE wrestler who's had a near-death experience and out-of-body experiences. Jamin, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. How you doing today, man?
I'm great, and even better since you're here. And what happened to you? Did you get a suplex and then pop out of your body or what?
Actually, it was a clothesline. And if anybody knows what a clothesline is in professional wrestling, it's when a wrestler is thrown to the ropes and he bounces off, and another guy brings out his arm and he hits him, usually across the chest. Well, in my case, I got hit in the throat real hard. And at the time, I actually thought I broke my neck. I felt like this, I heard this like crack. But what happened is I ended up flying out of my body instantly. And I saw myself in the ring and I looked dead. And I was trying to get back in, and the other wrestler's recognizing this, and he's not sure what to do. So he starts pandering to the crowd. He was the in our industry, we call it a heel. So he was the bad guy. And he was pandering to the crowd, and I'm watching myself over my body, trying to wake myself up, like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, how do I get back in? And I'm trying to jump in. And every time I'm jumping in, it's almost like I'm coming out and floating and jumping in and jumping out. And I started just panicking, and all of a sudden I heard "not yet," and it felt like a slap across my face, and I zapped right back into my body. And next thing I know, I'm still performing normal. It was almost as if there wasn't time that went by. It was almost like I understood that I took the move, and I knew it was that point to sell. And selling in our industry is the idea that I got to pretend that I'm hurt and crawling up the ropes. But that NDE was a unique experience for me because my whole life I've had out of body experiences. Uh, they just I induce them naturally. I'm not quite sure how to do it, but that is what happens to me. And in that particular situation, I'm comfortable with leaving my body. I'm comfortable with floating over my head. What I wasn't comfortable with is I didn't have the control to go back into my body, and I thought that was, in fact, a strange and scary feeling at the time. Because if I'm leaving my body in an OBE, I can, body now back in my body just like that. So for me, that was an interesting experience, and that was quite profound at the time. Yeah.
Was this match on television?
It was on a show called Ohio Valley Wrestling Television. Now, if to break it down, there was the WWE, and then they had their farm leagues, which was called Ohio Valley Wrestling. It's known as like the Harvard of pro wrestling. So uh, it was down in OVW where that happened to me, and yeah, it yes, it is on film, to answer your question. Maybe I could find it for you. Maybe I could find it for you. That'd be kind of funny.
The reason I'm asking is, did you go back and watch it? And if so, it would be interesting to see how you would reinterpret it, watching this all play out on television.
Yeah, so I think when I watched it back, it looked no different than me taking a move in a match and laying flat on my back. The only difference, I mean, I was a very active guy in the ring, so if I had gotten hit, uh, I was all over the place. I would always use a lot of body language and a lot of energy. In this sense, I didn't use any body language at all. But yet, looking back at it, it felt kind of like wah, 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 because it was like, oh, it just looks like I took a big move and he knocked me out or something, and I'm pretending I'm knocked out. But no, in fact, yeah, I had left my body. So
Now you're watching yourself on TV and you see your body laying there and you think, oh, that's when I was out of my body trying to figure out how to
yeah,
get back in.
I think it's interesting to see. For me, I was really excited to see it back because I was like, I got to see it. But when I watched it back, I just felt like, oh man, this is kind of lame. I thought I'd get a different feeling or something more out of that, but it was interesting. I know a lot of your folks like NDEs, and I thought what was interesting to me was the smack I felt. It hurt, and you hear this not now, real fast. It hurt. Like I felt it as if it was a literal slap across my face. And when I'm out of body, sensations usually are they're there, but they don't feel like that per se. And that was very close to some as if I was in my body. So that was real interesting to me. I think what I pulled out of that particular experience was that slap. I thought that was I wanted to investigate that even more after that when I had my OBs.
Many near death experiencers talk about that there's no time on the other side. And while you were there outside of your body, did it seem like you were out of your body for a long time? And then when you go back and watch it on TV, you can say, oh, I really wasn't out of my body that long.
Yeah, I really I'm glad you brought that point up. It did. It felt like I was out there more, especially when I was trying to go in and I was in such a panic that I thought I died that I was just doing everything in my power. So I think in those moments, for sure, it felt like something that took a very long time. But you're right. Watching it back, let me think about it for a second. This was in 2007. So let me just think about when I watched it back, it was definitely shorter. Uh, and if I had to give a time, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 30 seconds before I came to again and started moving and doing the thing. So yes, I would say in the moment that it happened, it felt way more than 30 seconds. Probably felt like a couple minutes, if I had to put it. But I'm used to that phenomenon in general, like no time. It comes. I understand that concept, so I don't think I was too flabbergasted by that. But it is interesting that you brought that up. That's a really good question because that was indeed the facts, though. It felt like several minutes, but yet 30 seconds.
Do you think that it was the pain that popped you out of your body or you couldn't breathe?
If I had to say, I think he hit me so hard. Uh, the guy, okay, so let me go back a little bit. The guy who hit me, he probably was 6'4". Now I'm okay, I'm 5'7". So this guy was probably 6'4". He looked like the Hulk. I mean, he was he was a big guy and he hit me really hard. I just believe that he knocked me out. I think he probably gave me a concussion. I didn't know it. I didn't know it at the time. I never really had that checked. So, but I just remember that hit and feeling that crack and it was and it's actually now when I think about it now, the crack might have been my spirit literally leaving that maybe that sound I heard. So
Mhm.
I'm coming. This is really interesting. I'm thinking about this now for the first time. I think that's what the crack was. It was me leaving. But in the moment that I got hit, there was a quick thought of you just broke your neck. That's what I thought. But now my neck was fine.
Hmm. It's interesting that you say that because there are some people that do hear a pop or something when they leave. So it makes sense to me.
It's life's interesting, man. There's so many mysteries to NDEs, and you never know really what it is, but it's all happening. So it's as real as it is at the same time.
Well, speaking of mysteries, who was the being that gave you that spiritual slap to put you back in?
Yeah, so I have an angel that is by my side. There's several of them, and I started discovering them in my out of bodies when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. And when I was younger, what's interesting is if I don't know if people call them spirit guides, call them whatever you want. I call them angels because they look like angels, except they have this armor. They it's not like you picture an angel and you see the little flutes and you see the wings and the robes. I don't get that experience. I know that exists. I think that's like maybe another dimension of angels, but the ones that seem to surround me are heavily armored and they're cracked armored. It's not like it's pretty and pristine. There's a real masculinity to it, and there are feminine elements to them as far as like being compassionate and empathetic. But what I experience from them is very warrior like, as a matter of fact. And For me, I would say that's who slapped me. I mean, they're always around. Whenever I leave my body, those are like the first guys I see. Sometimes I don't want to deal with them. I just want to go past and try to hit as many different dimensions as possible. You know, that's usually my goal. My goal is if we're talking out of bodies now, my goal is when I do some out of body is to learn more about myself. We're multi-dimensional beings. There's so much going on that you want to try to understand all of those layers as best as possible. And for me, that seems to be the most important thing in how it plays to Earth. So for me, yeah, I have angels. They surround me, uh, and I'm appreciative of it. But I would guarantee that's who smacked me and said not yet.
It kind of sounds like you have archangels around you with the armor.
Perhaps, I try not to. I did this a lot when I was younger. Archangels I love the thought of it. I love the thought that there are archangels surrounding me, and it gives me a sense of power. Really, it's because of them I became who I am, and we can go into that later. But if they are archangels, great. If they're not, great. Because no matter what, I get a positive experience from them every single time. I think they have helped me shape into the man that I am today. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud. And you know what it is for me? I listen to them. So if they're giving me advice on something, even if it's something I want to do, and they're saying no, if I listen, it works out. Whenever I don't, I seem to repeat these lessons again. So you start to realize when you leave your body how it plays into the physical realm and how mindset is a whole thing and how you define your life. So going back to what you're saying about archangels is, yeah, maybe they are archangels. I could put that in my definitions. Sure, that's empowering. Uh, but if they're not, that's okay too. But I will go with today's definition that they are archangels, although I'm not really sure. I feel like when you're not sure, you open up, I think, more opportunity to see more. But when you say, I know this is the fourth dimension, I know this is the fifth dimension, I feel like you actually kind of shorten your perspective over time and you get stuck into these definitions of what this is and what's that. And I believe that kind of goes into reality too, right? Like us as humans, like, okay, everyone knows who listens to your show. Everyone knows this. We are multi-dimensional beings. They know for a fact there's something more, okay? But not everyone in the world thinks that way. And the ones that don't think that way, which is fine, they're going to see reality in a very confined way. Then this is what you do, and you put your shoes on, you take them down. But if you know anything about this stuff, I think you understand that definitions are really important. Your mindset and all this is important. Why do people see like angels and demons? Why do they? We'll go with demons, okay? We'll go with evil forces. I look at a evil force as just a lower vibrational entity. It is matching the vibration that you are putting out there. And oftentimes the vibration we're putting out that is negative could be a cynical thought we have. It could be the way we look at things. It's not always this like idea to me that like something's attaching to me and it's taking over me. No, no, no. In fact, I think we give other things in the universe, whether it be a tree or whether it be a bad entity, you're given it permission to come into your field of energy, so to speak. And then therefore it can influence your thought processes from that standpoint. But I believe if you're having a good mental mindset around what is life, what is the nature of reality, and there is a sense of trying to grow and understand more and go inward, not outward. Like we live in a world where like everyone's trying to get something from outside. They say, I want to manifest this. I want to make this happen for myself. But the simplicity to it, at least from my perspective, is it's all inside, as a matter of fact. All you have to do is go inside and understand the layers of you. And the more layers you understand, therefore your consciousness starts to expand. You start to understand more dimensions of yourself, dimensions that you didn't see before. And to me, that's the most fascinating thing about whether it be an NDE or an OBE or any type of spiritual phenomenon that people experience. You are learning more about yourself. That is the key from my perspective.
You mentioned that you started having OBEs when you were like 4 years old or something. How did that all start for you?
Yeah, let me give you some more context about me then. I was born with spinal meningitis. I'm a twin. So one baby was completely good, the other baby wasn't. They told my mother, baby B, I was baby B, that baby B is going to be mentally handicapped, and he won't be able to, retain information and yada, 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 yada. She said to herself, okay, so now we'll say around the age of 3, okay? You're starting to learn and get concepts and stuff. I wasn't picking up anything. So my mother said, okay, what if I don't put him on any medications? What if I don't give him any type of therapies? What if I just teach him meditation? And from a very young age, it was part of my routine of being a kid to make sure you go and pray or meditate. My mom would use the word prayer, but really she was talking about meditation because she was always telling me to do deep breathing and things like that. And and to empower ourselves, she used to say, see yourself like how you're going to be when you're older, and how do you want to empower the world. She used to say this all the time, to the point where it was always annoying after a while to hear it, but she was so adamant about getting the mindset right. And when I started having OBEs, I want to say 4 years old. Okay, I'm giving you a kind of I would say 4 or 5, but I remember like leaving like my bed and seeing my twin brother next to me in the other bed, and seeing my mother get ready for work and she's putting on lipstick, and my other brother saying, "Mom, I got to wake up Jamin." And she's like, "Go wake your brother up." And I could hear all this and see all this, and I'm like, I'm right here. I'm thinking that. But all of a sudden they come in the room, "Hey Jamin, wake up." And they're waking me up. And I always found that to be quite fascinating. So then it turned into me asking my mother about them. And at the time I was calling them dreams, because I was like, "Oh, I had this dream, Mom, that." And she's like, "Oh, no, 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 no. Like, keep exploring that. Tell me more about your adventures." And she always encouraged me to keep on like looking more into it and investigate it more. And so I did. And what started happening as I started aging, okay, so now I'm in school and I'm realizing, wait a second, I'm in these special ed classes. I'm noticing it. I'm in the class with kids with Down syndrome, autism. Something's wrong with me. And I'm not quite sure what it is because my mother's never telling me. So I'd ask the teacher, "Hey, what's wrong with me?" And she's like, "Oh, nothing's wrong with you. Do your work." And okay, okay, okay. But I would go home miserable every single day because I felt like something was wrong with me. And now this goes back into what I was saying earlier about mindset. I had a mindset that I wasn't good enough in the world. So now what started happening is I would go to bed. I was actually afraid to go to bed because I started having OBEs where I would wake up and I'd see these like I don't know what the terminology is people in spiritual world use these days. I think it's like shadow figures. Well, I saw these type of things, okay? They were like real short, and people call them aliens, whatever. And I would feel them like on top of me. And sometimes it felt like they were choking me. Sometimes it felt like they were just breathing in my ear. And it used to scare the hell out of me. So I would once again go back to my mom and I would say, "This is really scaring me. I'm having these nightmares of X, Y, and Z." And she'd say, "Just stare at them. That's all you have to do. Just stare at them." And I never understood that concept. I used to say, "Okay, easy for you to say." Now let's fast forward again, okay? Fast forward to, we'll say, around 12 or 13 years old. I don't know, somewhere in my middle school years. I started to finally take her advice. So I'd had tons of out of bodies all the time, to the point where I was afraid to go to bed every single night. I hated to go to sleep. Couldn't stand it. So I couldn't stand school, couldn't stand going to sleep. The only thing I loved was professional wrestling. That was like my hook as a kid. But in this experience, what I had ended up realizing is, one day I left my body and I saw this like Doberman pincher looking thing, and it looked demonic. It had like it was almost as if its face was falling off, and there was drool coming from its teeth, and it was dripping off its teeth to go to its chin, to come down up from its mouth. It was real detailed. And I remember hearing my mom's advice kind of go through the Rolodex of my thoughts. She would say, "Just stare at it, just stare at it." So finally, I just started to stare at it. I said, "Okay, just stare at it." And the more I started staring at it, I started realizing those details I just explained. And then I'm looking at the eyes of the being and I'm saying, "Wait a second, is this real?" And the minute I said that, it dissipated in front of me. that was an empowering moment because then I started to understand, oh, how you think is what you see. And then take this kid who thinks low about himself growing up. Now I started taking that and applying it to reality. Okay, what if the same rules apply? What if I start saying, instead of I'm going to have a bad day, what if I tell myself, I'm going to do the best I can today, which was also my mother's advice. She would always tell me that. And I started applying that mindset into reality. And then I started understanding, oh, wait a second. I can't wait to leave my body again. And I wasn't using this terminology back then. The terminology I was using was dream. I can't wait to dream again. Because every night I started dreaming with more and more curiosity about myself. And that's when I started experiencing more and more things. Always saw angels, even throughout my younger years. Saw them, didn't know what the heck they were. And what I wanted to say earlier, and I think I forgot to mention it, what I find interesting about that is even they look like they age over time every time I see them. So, and I don't mean old, but they change form as well. So to me, that's a great mystery. But yeah, a little bit about my background. I think this is why these things come so naturally to me. Maybe it was the way my brain was dispositioned as a kid. I almost felt like I had to learn what physical reality was uh, before the spiritual realm. I felt like I was in the spiritual world all the time as a kid, not understanding much. Couldn't retain information. By the way, didn't learn multiplication until I was 16. I mean, I was very late in everything. So to me, physical reality was just the other side of, an NDE or an OBE. To me though, it's all reality. It's all relative, and I think it's relative to how you think and who you are as a person.
It sounds like that we create our own demons.
I would argue that point with anybody. Uh, I'm not naive to the fact that there are there is evil in the world or bad in the world. But I do believe the way you think is I just don't like using this word attract, but what you pull out of you is how you're feeling, what you're thinking, how you're choosing. So I believe you have to choose your friends wisely. I believe you have to choose your words wisely sometimes. I believe you have to kind of choose a little bit of everything wisely, but I think it should come from a place of curiosity, and not so much, even if it's something negative. Let's say you're experiencing this demon. I've experienced many things that I probably wouldn't prefer in my energy field, but at the same time, I feel like I'm looking at them as ignorant. I'm looking at them as just normal people who don't know really what they are. And if they'd known what they are, I think they would feel a lot different. And once again, I'll say it again, we are multi-dimensional beings. I feel like there's so many aspects of us that could be learned, and especially through an NDE or an OBE. That's why I get inspired by people who talk about their NDEs. They say they saw Jesus, or they saw angels, or I'm all about that because they're expanding their consciousness. They are walking away with a completely new idea of how to live life, and quite frankly, that's exciting if you ask me. I think that's one of the cool parts about uh, being on Earth. Before the show we talked about, Earth is a prison. Perhaps it is, but perhaps the power you put into it too will also determine how the quality is. So if I'm in prison, I'll tell you what, I don't mind it that bad. I'm able to eat, I'm able to do things, I have my loved ones around me. Is there a lot of bad in the world? Absolutely. But I believe the way you're choosing to define things to yourself uh, is only good if you're making it easier. If you're making it harder, then it shall be hard. What you seek, you shall find, they say, I believe. So if I would have to say that's true in the laws of astral projection, or OBEs or NDEs. What you seek, you shall find. If you're Christian, you'll be around Christian forces. If you're agnostic, you'll be around agnostic forces. If you're whatever, you'll be around this. You'll be around. If you're evil, then you will be around evil. You will experience what you are. To me, it's very simple math, as a matter of fact.
Is it generally easy to get back in your body while you're out?
Yes. Well, okay. So there are techniques you could do when you leave a body. Say you're in an NDE or an OBE or astral project. To me, it's all the same. as a matter of fact. I can't. I know people would argue this with me, but I mean, it's like, look, I don't know. I've been doing this for 36 years. I don't know. I, you start to realize there are techniques and ways to kind of move around that reality. You got to understand when you're in a different dimension, there's like different rules. And the thing that was the mystery to me, I will admit this though, in that NDE, once again, I have the confidence of leaving my body. That's not a problem. I leave my body. I want to go back in. I'm done exploring for the day. I go in, go to sleep. In this case, the panic was definitely the fact that I couldn't do what I was commanding to do. When you're outside your body, you have to make. I think this is a basic technique, and I'm probably sure a lot of people know this too. But you have to make commands. You have to tell yourself, I'm going here now, or whatever sounds good to you. But there has to be I think a life force coming in with the intention of like back to my body now, human now, door now, kitchen now, whatever, wherever you're going. But what was interesting is that I couldn't go back in my body, and that was a big panic. Yeah, to this day, as I was actually recalling it with you, I was getting anxiety thinking about it because it. You know, they say, when you die, it's just like going into another room. Perhaps that's true. But I'm sure when it's sudden for people, right? Say a car accident or something, you're freaking out. You know what I mean? It's one thing if you're old, you lived a long life, you pass, you cross, you're like, okay, I got it. But in a moment like that, there was a lot of panic, and that was to me that was interesting. And later on, I went on to read the Tibetan Book of the Living and Dying, and in fact, they talked about that a lot, where people would leave their bodies and try to go back in, and they couldn't, and they're watching their family mourn over them, and that really hit home to me. That to me that was there was a lot of truth I saw in that, and I found that to be quite interesting.
Can you give us any tips on how to lead a life that would be more positive?
Yeah, but it has to start simple. So what I'll say by that is, we all want to, okay, look, as humans, we all want to lead a better life. We want to all do better. But you have to take aspects of yourself where you're not disciplined and discipline those. For example, if you don't like doing the dishes and you leave your dishes in the sink and you let them pile up, you're always going to feel bad doing the dishes. But let's say you made a rule to yourself, okay, every time I eat, I'm going to take this dish and wash it right away. Okay, take something simple. It could be making your bed. It really could be anything it could be brushing your teeth, and some people don't like to brush your teeth. We're all lazy somewhere. So I believe in order to find new ideas and to expand your own consciousness, you have to go into areas of your life where you feel lazy. If you know you should be doing something, you must do it. That is the secret truth. Sometimes people are going to psychics to ask, like, how can I get to this point? And the psychic will give them the answer. But at the same time, it comes down to practicality too. You have to be disciplined in certain areas in your own dimension to get to that certain spot that the psychic might be telling you. The psychic might actually see something for you, but the problem is usually the individual is not willing to do the work that takes them there. And I think that's the big travesty. And I think out of body exploration, I think anybody should always try. I know people are like, oh, no, I don't like separating from my body, or I see the demons. No, 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 no. That's a mindset. And I think if you can turn the way around, I'm sorry, let me say that again. If you can turn around the way you look at it, if you can redefine it, then you're going to experience something completely different. It's just a fact. Like, don't take my word for it. Like, literally go out and do that in your life. If you change your life just a hair, once again, let's say I don't like making my bed every morning, but now I decide every single day I'm going to make my bed. You do that for a couple of months, okay? I guarantee you're turning the dial of your experience just a hair, where the whole trajectory changes completely. And it's no different, once again, than an out of body or an NDE. When you're out of body, everything is thought responsive. I'm here. Wow, I'm there. That's why when people dream, a lot of people, I've talked to experts in the out of body field, and sometimes they'll argue with me about dreaming and out of bodies. I think it's all the same. I just think sometimes you're more conscious and then not. And the ones that you're conscious in are conscious in is because you probably practiced and it's real to you. Fine. But dreams are the same way. I think everybody should get curious about all of that. Why now? Because how does that, it's like, well, okay, I can learn all that, but how does that play into my reality? Well, if you're able to change your perspective and the way you look at that, then it's going to be easier over here in physical reality. It's no different. There's no separation from anything. You are what you are, but who you are inside, who you are being, really being, not what you're projecting to people, not when you go outside and you say, hello, nice to meet you. And, you're playing a little game, and we all do that. It's fine. No big deal. But when you're home, who are you? How do you really, like, are you actually a good person? Are you cheating on your spouse? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? You got to be able to take those aspects of yourself and change one of them. You have to start small. So, long-winded answer for a question, but I think it's all simplicity. Once again, basic math.
Do you think that the main thing that stops people from having OBEs is fear?
Yes.
What's the best way to overcome it?
The best way to overcome fear, once again, you got to make a decision. You have to empower your decisions. I don't mean making the decision like, okay, when I have an OBE, I'm going to choose to not be fearful. Okay, that's a good start. But it's more like, you know what? And a person has to feel it. Do you see what I'm saying? Once again, it's like kind of we go out in the world and we pretend we're something we're not sometimes. It can't be like that when you're telling yourself something you really want to do. So if you're really interested in doing this stuff and really learning the art of it, then you must do the disciplines that are around that. And the discipline to me would be you have to convince yourself, listen, I might be scared of this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Now that's a different command than saying, man, I'm kind of scared to do this. Hopefully it goes good. You want to make sure you are coming from a place of strength. There could be fear. That's not actually fear. You can have a tinge of fear, fine, but you have to be willing to say this scares the heck out of me, but I'm going to stare at it. It goes back to the advice my mom gave me. It was one of the biggest pieces of information I think she gave me in my life that has changed my life. And it was just stare at it. What is it going to do? Because how nasty can we get in our minds? Oh, please, we all know how nasty we could get in our minds. So if you can get that nasty, don't be surprised when you see something that looks nasty. It's almost as if you're looking at another version of yourself or another dimension. And if the thought process is, I'm really scared of this, well, sure, yeah, you jump back in your body. But if the process is this scares me, but I'm gonna keep staring, it will go away. I've seen this countless times in my life. I mean, it's like, Earth to me sometimes is this like this place where we show each other fears and good things, and so there's like a mix of emotions, and you need that. By the way, you need duality. I mean, duality is good for us. Like but once again, that's a mindset I'm choosing to have around the things that don't look good in this world. There's a lot of things I can't stand in this world, but that doesn't mean I can't learn something about myself and how I feel about it and how I would handle a situation if I were ever to be around a bad situation. You have to be able to understand, once again, all of the dimensions of you. And there's so many. If I were to say all this right now, I would reckon that most likely my angels have probably given this information to me throughout time. Could I say it was in words? No, but it's in my being. It's in what's coming from me right now. This is how I truly feel. And so these subject matters are really important to me because if you can get so interested in out of body exploration or NDEs or any of this stuff, dreaming, psychic phenomenon, meditation, take them all because you're going to learn a whole bunch of stuff about yourself and it's going to be quite fascinating. I mean, it's one of the most exciting topics. Like I thought wrestling was cool. I feel like this is like a whole nother world because every single day you're learning something new about you. It's incredible.
I think earlier you mentioned that you're not really sure how you do it. Is that true? And if so, do you have any advice for people to go learn how to do it?
I do. I do. In 2006, I had a roommate who's still a good friend of mine today. I used to tell him about my out of body experiences all the time, and he used to think I was full of it. He was like, I don't know, man. It just sounds kind of hokey pokey. And I was like, well, try it for yourself. And at the time, he would say, well, how do you do it? And I was like, how do I do it? Because it's such a natural, to me, it just it okay, you know how I would actually depict it? If do you remember those old optical illusions in the newspaper? Like you used to look at as a kid and you stare at the design and it makes an image. Do you remember this at all?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, that muscle is the same muscle you're using when you close your eyes. Do what you will with it. That's how I do it, okay? Now, at the time, I was so hell-bent on proving my buddy wrong and I wanted him to experience it for himself that I started looking up like ways to do it. And then I would practice these myself and they wouldn't work for me. Like there was like a rope technique and there was all these, there's like a target technique. The target technique is the one that worked for me where I was like, okay, I'll pick a location and just do it. I'll just do some deep breathing. Anywho, I had one of my, so I told one of my friends, you should try this. I told him, "Hey, I'm going to put something on my counter in my room, and I want you to see if you can tell me what it is." He did this. No, I don't know, 20 days maybe, 20 days. He was practicing on a daily basis. Couldn't get it. Couldn't get it. Couldn't get it. Till finally the day he does it, and he told me. He said, "Hey, I saw a wrench on your desk." And what I thought was interesting is actually I had a sticky note that said wrench. But yet he saw a physical wrench. So he achieved this and he thought it was so fascinating. To this day, him and I kind of go off about it. We really like that subject. But if I had to say, how do you do it? I would say this technique's pretty good. Where let's talk about this real fast. If you do a bunch of deep breathing, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners know this, if you deep breathe for a very long time, you're going to feel a buzzing sensation around your body. You're just going to feel this like the best way I could describe it is this, it's almost as if like your body fell asleep or something. It's like a tingling sensation and you just kind of feel it. And what I would instruct someone to do if they really want to do this is when you go to bed at night, take a deep breath, hold it in for 5 seconds, let it out for 5 seconds. Breathe in for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, let it. Try to make your target number 40 or 50. Now, what's going to happen is while you're climbing those numbers, probably around 20, 25 area, you're going to feel the vibrational state. This is when you're about to detach from the body. A lot of people call this sleep paralysis. Um, and that's actually one of the most that's one of the most scariest parts to people, but for me that excites me because to me it's like getting ready to launch. I'm like, all right, here we go. I could feel myself rising. But then what people do is they have a tendency to direct their mind to the body. So when there's a vibrational state happening around you, you're directing your mind to that, but it's still going around the form of a body. So what you want to do is not think about that at all. You're going to feel this sensation, and this might take you a few times, but you're going to you have to take your attention off of the vibrational state while still breathing, by the way, but focus on the targeted area you want to be. So say it's like outside, I don't know, just pick an area that you know very well, like up and down, left or right. I know that's what my kitchen looks like. I'm gonna make sure I go to my kitchen. Anywho, this seems to work a lot, especially with friends and people I met along the way and would kind of give this to. For me, it's a little different, but this target technique seems to work for people. But the big key in all of this, guys, is you have to not have your attention on your body at all. Don't like assume like, oh, I am me. I am no, 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 no. You have to go beyond that because when you get to the sleep paralysis state, this is what scares people, where they're stuck and they could start seeing everything around them. In order to disengage from the body, you have to make a command. Like I'm outside now, but you have to have a command in it. Once again, there has to be a belief that this is happening. If the belief in the moment is, oh man, I'm getting really scared, back to the body again. We have to start our breathing all over again. Make sense? So you want to make sure that you are coming from a place of certainty And the more practice you get with that, once again, don't expect to hit it on the first time, but the more practice you get through it, you start seamlessly moving into worlds, places that it's just going to fascinate you. You might see your past loved ones. You might see aliens. You might see all types of different beings, but the way I see it is we're all aliens. we're all like we're all from a different civilization. Earth to me is like the playground, and it's the theme park, and all different types of people go to that theme park for all different types of parts of the world, and blah blah blah. Same thing with the universe. We're all like, beings that are coming down from somewhere, from some civilization, and we're experiencing Earth the same way. So once again, to me, it's all kind of Earth and outside of Earth, or this or that. We're all in space. We're all multidimensional, and I think getting to know those aspects of yourself are the most important. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on how to leave your body. I think deep breathing is always a good foundation for any type of meditation or anything of that nature. I think you have to get your body in a relaxed state. And for God's sake, stop being mean to yourselves when you're in these situations, right? Like, you want to make sure that you are going into this with a sense of enthusiasm. The more enthusiasm I started having about having out of bodies when I was a kid, I started experiencing nicer things. What's funny about that, though, fear-based wise, the more I didn't want to go to bed at night because I was afraid of having an out of body, I had them. So what you seek, you shall find. You will go wherever you're supposed to go, if that makes sense.
What are some of the most extraordinary things you've seen while out of the body?
Yeah, I've seen worlds where you'd see these bodies of water and it looked like there'd be multiple moons. Like, we look up in the sky, we see the moon at night. Well, these moons were even closer to whatever this planet is, right? I don't want to come up with names and stuff because I don't know. But there's these dimensions where there's just all this water, and there's these gates and there's these guards. Sometimes you see those what is it in Egyptian culture. I think it's a sphinx. I think it's a sphinx. The Yeah. Anyway, you'd see these guards that looked similar to these. I'm not saying it is them, but you would see. I've seen things like this, and you can't cross over. It's almost as if like, no, 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 you're not ready yet. There's the sensation I get when you're communicating to other beings. It's okay to me. So let me lay it out this way. To me, when you're seeing anything outside of yourself, I look at it as just people. I think if you give it a hierarchy or give it too much, I think it's an easy way for you to kind of lose your sense of power in those moments, because you'll find that these are people just as curious about you as you are about them. And after you do it so many times, it stops becoming so like, wow, this is really interesting. But yeah, a fascinating world I tend to go to quite often. I'm not sure what it is. It is this body of water, and it has these like fences. I would relate it to like the spike fences, and they look rusty though. They look very rusty, but there's these big guards. I'm talking large, like I don't know, 10 feet tall. Like they're huge. They're humongous. They look like statues, but they're these beings, and they don't allow you to cross certain dimensions. I always found that to be very interesting. The way I took that though is always, oh, I have to learn more about myself, or oh, in order to pass this part, I have to see more. I've seen planets where you are. There's a joke I have. I call it Neptune, even though it's not Neptune. But all the flowers are like, you see this planet full of flowers, and they're all whistling together. And there's almost like a song they're singing. And it's not like anything you hear, but it's interesting. I don't know what that is. I've seen things that I always assume this is the moon. I'm not sure. Okay. But it looks like the moon. It has this like grayish feel to it. It doesn't have like buildings or no structures at all. But you'll see like prints of like fossils almost of like these cats, like these big cats. Like, you're like, wow, what is this? What rules this planet, or what ruled this planet? I've been to places where I went to this place where there was these alien, like a typical alien, the way you'd see it. You know how you see a gray, big eyes, whatever.
Yeah.
I went to this planet where I saw this like, they weren't gray, but it was the same look. They were brown, in fact. And I don't know if they're called you know those old Western like movies and stuff, they'd be in these like buildings that looked like that, kind of Western looking. And I remember waking up one time into this place, and I'm looking around with my eyes, and I just see a being like looking at me like this. And the minute I looked at it, it went like this. It went behind the tree. It was like behind a tree. And then I look and I see these like, I think they're called lagoons. I'm not sure what they're called, but I saw these other things. I turned my head and you see another two, and they're in the window, and they hide real quick. And I remember thinking, ooh, I don't think I should be here. I don't like the vibration of this. Change my state now. So to me, these things are always fascinating to me, but I'm always searching for more like, what can I learn from it? Like, what information could they have given me? I've had angels tell me, I've asked about the story of Jesus, like, hey, what's up with Jesus? Like, is it true? Is it not true? Is it this? It's that. They'll say like, oh, well, Jesus was buried alive, he wasn't really on a cross. Now, I don't know if that's true, okay? I don't know. But I had beings tell me that. I find that interesting. But for me, once again, I don't try to take these things as this is the facts, because I suspect that anything outside of me, if I have the capability to make something up, then something else probably does too. So maybe it is something, I've heard people tell me like, my friends will say, oh, those are like demons and stuff. Oh, yeah, maybe they're demons, but I just don't allow it to define like how I should think and how I should perceive these things, because if I start putting walls up, then I'm not going to be able to experience these other dimensions, so to speak. So I just look at it all as like a playground. Like, to me, it's fun. I want to get to know as many beings as possible. I think the ultimate politics is not what you see in people, but like who you're making friends with too. If you are experiencing other beings on the other side, are you polite? Are you coming in with curiosity, or are you coming in as something trying to be scary? I've done that too, and I've had my bad ends of things. When I was younger, I used to come in, oh, I used to think I was powerful, okay, because I started getting some confidence when through out of body exploration, and I started thinking like, oh yeah, I'm the head honcho in charge. When I leave, so when I'd leave my body, I'd come in with this attitude of like, I'm the man, nothing's gonna stop me. And then all of a sudden, you see something way bigger than you and way stronger than you. And what I mean by strong and strength is you'll see this like tall alien, excuse my language. It could be white looking. Like I said, they all come in different forms, but it could be white looking, and it's not saying anything to you, but it's making you feel it. It's making you feel, no, 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 you are small, you are tiny. So when I started understanding, oh, I have to approach everything with respect, and once again, that's why I get excited about this stuff, because I just think there's so much like we could be exploring as people, and we're not even like scratching the surface of it. Like, I'm surprised this subject is not more mainstream. I'm really not. I mean, I'm really surprised. Like, maybe it is, maybe I don't know, but I just feel like everyone should be talking about this. It's one of the most exciting things. And if we could share perspectives, we're also going to open up portals for each other to experience. I believe that too. So I think there's a lot of good that comes out of this stuff.
Would it be accurate to say there's nothing to fear on the other side?
I would say so. Yeah. I think the only thing you need to fear is your own state of being. I think if we all, once again, this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, we all know ourselves pretty well, and we all know what we're not doing, and we all know where we're being kind of like jerks in the world. We know when we're being a jerk. And if you can't get those aspects of you under control, you're going to experience maybe the sides of you that are that. I mean, it once again, it is simple math to me. And I didn't learn math really until I was 16, but it is just simple. It's just, all the spiritual masters have talked about this throughout our time, like you to know thyself, understand yourself. And I think there's got to be a level of humility and not just humility, but I think just loosen up too. All of us need to loosen up a little bit more. Life is short. And you want to make sure, I think, that you are trying to put as much into your consciousness that is good for you more than bad. And I know ultimately we want that all for ourselves and we get stuck, but usually going back to what we were discussing earlier, I think it's fear-based stuff. I think it's just as simple as that. If you want to empower yourself, empower yourself. If you don't, then be aware of that. At least be aware of it so then you can work on that aspect of yourself. It's all in how you use language.
Have you ever seen anything out there during an OBE that's been reflected or shown on television or in a movie?
Crypto actually. Crypto.
Cryptocurrency?
Well, I don't know if this is what you're asking, but so excuse me if I'm misunderstanding the question. But when I was younger, I used to see a digital currency happening. I wouldn't, I wouldn't have said that's crypto but crypto was one of the things. Like when Bitcoin started coming around, I was like, wait a second, this sounds familiar. I remember thinking that, like, oh wait, I think I kind of saw this. And I remember seeing before I was born in an out of body one time. This is when I was younger. I remember seeing that I was going to come around this time. I was born in 1985, okay? But I remember seeing a timeline, looking at the earth, and it was almost like this silence around me. You know how silence can even have a buzzing sound? I remember this sensation where I saw, like, oh, I'm going to be around the years of this. And you could see a whole timeline of numbers. And I remember always being very very just interested in that. That was cool. But crypto was something that I saw a digital world where like people were like scanning their hands, and now you see that today with digital currencies. I don't know. I don't know. Once again, I could say, oh yeah, that I did see that, but I know it was a digital world, and cryptocurrency is probably the closest thing that I would say that I saw to that. But as far as like predicting the future in any way? Not really. I predicted my own future. I mean, I knew I was going to become a professional wrestler and I did it. I knew when I was 4 years old, laid my eyes on it. I said, I'm going to do this. I don't know how, but I'm going to do this. And throughout school, especially when you're a special needs student and your guidance counselor's asking you, what do you see yourself doing in college? And I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm going to go to college. I think I want to be a professional wrestler. Jamin, that's like trying to make the NFL. We got to be a little more realistic. And I remember I used to say, I am being realistic though. Like, I really believe in this. And once again, this kind of goes back into my philosophies of like who you are is what your life becomes. So uh yeah, I think if there was anything I saw, especially when I would leave my body when I was younger too, and I used to try to make deals with my angels. I used to say, "Hey, if I study real hard for my test, will you help me become a professional wrestler when I'm older?" I used to say these things, and then I would fail the test or whatever, and lo and behold, it still works out, right? So I think it's really about the effort and things you put into things. But yeah, as far as seeing like the future, things like that, it's not so much from that perspective, no.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody who's interested in this stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I can give you my website. It's
Sure.
jaminolivencia.com. And find me on social media, find me on my website. And yeah, let's hook up a time and talk. Like once again, this stuff is really important to me. And my mission on this planet at this time in my life is to help as many people as possible to open up their own consciousness. And there's nothing to be afraid of. Let's just have some fun and learn about ourselves and become the best we can.
Do you have anything else going on that you want people to know about?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, guys, I'm a personal development coach. And so, what I do is I use conversation as a focusing tool to help people understand themselves. You can call it a spiritual session. You can call it this. You can call it that. I just call it two people talking and finding an answer and making that goal happen. I'm also a business coach. And yeah, you could find me at jaminolivencia.com or go to my social medias and hit me up. Let's just talk in general. Either way, I'm not here to sell services. I'm here to make friends and meet new people and really get into this community and make a difference.
Before we wrap it up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
If you take anything from me, anything from this conversation, the one thing I want you to know is what matters to you becomes matter. Be the best you can. Enjoy life and smile a little bit more. It's good to be alive.
Jamin, thank you for your message and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.